Welcome to the first ever episode of Schody's Influencer Spotlight. And today I've got guest Dave Pygon with me. The purpose of this whole segment was to bring people from my network that'll be valuable to the business owners and executives that I'm often interacting with, and lead them down the path of getting some benefit from people in my network. So again, today I've got Dave Pygon. Dave and I have become good friends over the past year plus. We met through Maury Elstein at TAG Executive Luncheon. And the first time I saw you, Dave, I was very struck by your presence, your confidence. And once I learned more about what you did, wanted to dig in and bring you into my network. Oh. And so today, hopefully we can do a little bit more of that and want to dive in. So, my quick take on Dave's background. Dave is the founder of Pygon One Consulting, author of the book Win the 16, and we'll hear more about that later. And former Division I athlete. What I learned from your book: great father, great son, and I guess the only bad thing I can say about Dave is he went to St. Rita High School, rival to my brother Rice High School. But anyway, Dave, how about from you? A little more on your background.
First of all, Michael, being part of this is an honor. It's so cool. And first, I'd like to touch about this whole, some people call it networking. I call it my ecosystem. And you right away off the bat, once we connected, within 5 minutes, I knew I had another, I would call them my assets in my ecosystem. So you were great. I've learned a ton from you. I enjoyed our first sushi meal together on Taylor Street here in Chicago when we ate. And I think the first restaurant we were going to meet at that day, if I remember correctly, was closed on Mondays.
True.
So we had to maneuver. But it's an honor to be here. But about myself, Pygon One Consulting, I am the founder and owner. And I tell this to everybody. I worked for corporate America, big, large companies for almost 3 decades, leading in leadership, leading teams for over 2 decades. I always wanted to write a book, Michael. I always wanted to run my own consulting, and we'll dive into that, I'm sure. I always wanted to do my own podcast with my brother. And I say this because I think it's a teachable moment right out of the gate. And that is, I had apprehension. I was nervous. I made every excuse: money, family, time. And finally, one day I said, enough is enough. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that. I don't even call it risk. I say it's bold. And I said, I'm going to start my company tomorrow. I'm going to start writing the book. And I am going to start my podcast. And my brother was like, we're going to do all 3 of this right now? I said, yes. Because if we don't, I'm going to have regrets looking back later in life. So I just want to share that with everybody. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 25, 35, 45, 55, 65. It's never too late to chase what you've always wanted to do.
Well said. Dave, before you got into coaching, you had a long, storied past. You worked for healthcare companies.
Yes.
You had a sales role.
Yes.
What did you learn through that experience about the importance of sales and how impactful salespeople could be?
Oh, I would say it started at ADP. I got recruited out of campus at automatic data processing, learning how to knock on, going door to door, foot canvassing, we used to call it, the cold calling, 150. Then I got into Alcon Laboratories, and they were big into the fundamental basics of sales. So my take on this whole world of sales is a couple things. One, it starts with mindset. And I say that with sales, I say that with leadership. I just believe, I don't care what your skills are, if your mind is not in that right place, you're not going to be as good as you could be. So I think the first thing I always communicate with my salespeople and sales leaders is your mind has to be ready. That is first and foremost. 2, you've got to customize who you're speaking with. If I'm talking to a Bill Gates critical thinker type, that is an absolutely different kind of conversation than if I'm talking to a Mark Cuban type or a Martha Stewart type. Let's say I'm talking to a Julie Roberts type. Those are 3 different personality traits of people. They behave and act differently. It's incumbent on me as the salesperson and you, Michael, to modify our behaviors. And many people say they do it. They're full of beans. They don't do it. They might at first. You hear a lot of people say it's so hard to sell critical thinkers. You're Bill Gates. Well, they're really not hard to sell at all. You just have to be not only confident, know your information, but you have to be patient because they're going to have 17 questions for you. And we think as salespeople, we answered 8 of them, they're ready to go. They're not. You're probably only halfway there. So I really look back on what I'm always preaching to my salespeople is mindset, you got to have it. I'm not saying you have to be positive all the time, but I'm saying instead of going negative, go neutral. Yeah, today's not great. Instead of going negative and allowing it to hijack your afternoon, go to neutral so you can get back up to where you know. And then the last thing I would say is follow up, and then follow up. A no today only means a yes tomorrow. In that mindset. So I would say those couple things really just are pivotal in my world.
And then you clearly answered some of this right there, but if you think back on some of the more impactful salespeople that you worked with, you know, folks that were leaders, and you took a little bit of what they showed you, what were those characteristics that stick out when you think about
that? Right off the bat, compete.
Okay.
And compete. And I look back on the people, I can think of Kelly, I can think of Adam, I can think of Matt, these people I'm picturing, and they have one thing in common. They compete. When things get hard, it's not that they don't kick the tire of the car like the rest of us do, but they compete. Monday morning, they're competing. Friday afternoon, they're competing. Your best salespeople, I don't know how you survive. I mean, maybe when I grew up, 30 years ago in selling, I was blessed. Now it's so complex. Michael, it's so competitive. If you aren't competing, good luck. So I would say that trait just jumps out at me. The other one is resiliency, because there's not a sales job. I don't care if you're Alex Brown selling for them. I don't care if you're at ADP. I don't care if you're selling for Retina, that you have to be resilient because you're going to face rejection. And you have to be able to manage that emotionally, because rejection today only means an opportunity tomorrow, and think that way. And I know everybody, it's easier said than done, but those people have that resiliency. You look at Angela Duckworth, who's kind of the godwoman of grit. She relates everything back to the most successful people aren't the smartest, they're the grittiest. And that all ties into resilience. So you give me someone that'll compete and that's got grit, we're going to do a lot of great things together.
Actually, that answer leads into the next question in a fantastic manner, because, how about the people you work with in your coaching role? You must have sales professionals, and part of what you have to do probably is to deconstruct, which of those characteristics they have and which are missing. Mm-hmm. Can you teach some of those characteristics, or do they have to be innate?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example. In the book, I have a chapter on mental toughness. And one of the things that people get surprised about is mental toughness, you're born that way, and some people might be born a little bit tougher than others, maybe, I guess, but the reality is mental toughness is a skill. And I bring that up to you because most people think it's not, and it absolutely is a skill. You can develop that. Do hard stuff. Those of you who don't get up early in the morning, get up 10 minutes earlier every day. And I always tell people, and when I say that, I don't mean, I always give them an obscure number too. I don't say 1 week or 10 days. I'll say, I want you to do it for 23 straight days. I didn't say 22 out of 23. I mean, I want you up 10 minutes early, 23 straight days, every day. And they're like, well, I get up early enough. I go to bed 10 minutes early. You have total control over that. These skills can absolutely be trained, coached. Leadership is another one. A lot of people say, oh, he's a natural leader. Someone might have some natural tendencies. They might be very charismatic potentially, but that doesn't mean they have the attention to detail to be a good leader. That doesn't mean when things get hard as a leader, they have those skills. Those are all learnable skills, but they have to work on them. Most of my clients come in and like, yeah, I'm good. A lot of times people try to fix me up, Michael, with people that are unsuccessful or companies that are really bad. And I always tell them, I will absolutely love to have a discovery conversation. It would be great, love to do it. Just so you know, they're never hiring me. There's a reason they struggle, and they're not doing so well over a long period of time. Because most people that are highly successful want every competitive edge they can get. And if that's tweaking their leadership development, that's getting better. The executives I work with, most of them say this to me, my public speaking isn't great. I said, can I change that? And they're like, what do you mean? Put yet on the back. You're not there, you're not great yet. You can be. So all of these things we can work on. Problem solving, efficiency, time management. Everyone complains about it. And usually what we find out is there are things that we're doing in our life, saying yes to, that the reality is we have to say no to get us more time.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about the book. So you wrote a book called Win the 16.
Yes.
I read that book. I thought it was fantastic. I
Thank
thought
you.
the message was clear. There are little things, again, going back to what you said, there are little things in our lives that we can control. And if we want things to change, we have to control. This morning, I felt like I did win the 16. I jumped in the pool for the first time in a little while. And as I'm swimming laps, I'm thinking, I think I'm winning the 16, but that's just part of it.
Yes.
Tell me what inspired you to write the book.
Okay. Let me define win the 16 for everybody. We all have 16 waking hours in a day to kick butt. It's our 16. The reason we came up was kind of funny, cute. When I had the idea, I want to write a book about kicking butt every day, winning every day. Win the day, win the 24. I went to my attorney. I said, let's trademark this. He's like, are you out of your mind? I don't even have to look that up. Win the day is trademarked. I'm like, yeah, good point. So I went back to the lab and all the data, I'm into the whole world of health and all that kind of stuff. And most healthcare providers will tell you nutrition, critical. Exercise, critical. Third component, sleep. And most of them say, generally speaking, on average, 7 to 9 hours, people. So I split the difference. I said, let's sleep for 8 hours. And I don't always get that in everybody, but that's the goal, but that doesn't always happen. We've got 16 hours to be our best selves. So that's what Win the 16 is, and that's what you're referring to on the Win the 16. And it was how I was raised. My mom raised 3 boys on her own. We've never heard her complain. She was disciplined. She created incredible habits. Mentally tough beyond belief, the challenges she faced on the south side of Chicago, raising 3 kids on her own. She was brilliant, though. She said, study and play sports so you stay out of trouble. We grew up on 67th and Western on the south side. It was brilliant. All of those things, I didn't know I wanted to write the book specifically this, but as I started contemplating and daydreaming, like, I want to write a book, I want to write a book, Mark Twain said it best. He said, write what you know. And I've kind of lived my life like this, about getting up early. I try to exercise early. I don't even try, I just do. Let me rephrase that. And that's who I've become, and that's what I do. And I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress. And I go, I'm going to share it with other people. And I think one of the key things in the whole book is there's chapters on accountability, on how to be positive, how to create habits, early successes in the day. But the one thing in the book that I love this quote in there, and not just because I know the guy who wrote it, is I'm not Tom Brady. I'm not Jocko Willink, the family Navy SEAL. I could be your neighbor. I'm your guy next door. If I can incorporate some of this stuff on my daily basis to help myself be my best self, and I'm not there yet either, I'm still trying to progress, you can too. So I thought it was really applicable, and it could really get to the mind and the heart of just the everyday person out there, whether you're a school teacher, you're a bigwig executive like you, or you're a doctor, or you're a plumber, electrician. I don't care what you are. Win the 16 is for you. You're a college kid, a high school kid. It's all applicable to you, because I'm nothing special. I'm nobody different than any of these people out there. And it doesn't mean I don't have tons of respect for Tom Brady and all these incredible athletes and people. I do. But most of us don't have our own chefs. We don't have a driver. We can't spend $40,000 on supplements. We have to do it the old-fashioned way. But we can do it. But baby steps, and that's in the book, and I know you and I have talked about it. It's little steps. If you don't exercise, totally understand. Let's walk every day for 10 minutes every day. Step in the right direction.
That's great. How about mentor? A couple questions around, mentors. First of all, clearly, having read your book, I think, one, I've got a new appreciation for you and learning more about the way you were brought up and your mom and what she did for you. So, I'm going to guess if I pressed you for a mentor, mom would come first. So
she's one.
Okay. Away from mom, in your professional life, who would you cite were mentors or critical people in your life? And what about somebody that doesn't have a mentor? Do they need to find a mentor?
I'm going to answer the second question, go back to the first, may I?
Yes.
Okay. I would say it is incumbent upon you to find a mentor. And and it's really not that hard. We live in a tough world, we know. Sometimes it's not as friendly as we'd like it to be, real. But generally speaking, most people are pretty big-hearted and good. And I can't recall anyone in my career, and maybe I'm just blessed, when I've asked for help, they said no. In terms of teach me, coach me, inspire me, motivate me, whether it was Jim Prunty, my high school basketball coach, whether it was a college professor, whether it was, and I would say my biggest mentor as I look back, I would say in my leadership career was Tom Dooley. He was the first manager, director I had as a first-time leader myself. So I was 29 years old when I had the first opportunity to lead people and teams. And his mentorship, when we were screwing up, and the pat on the back's like, yeah, you should screw up. You're new at it. Good, I'm glad, because that means you're trying. And he gave us all the best advice. And he said, guys, step one, whoever you want to be as a leader, pick it out and be that. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to change strategy and you're not going to do different things. But if you're going to be that person, if it's good days or bad days, stay that person. You cannot be schizophrenic with your employees. You can't be the good cop one day and the bad cop next day. You will change strategy. You will hold people accountable. You will tell people, hey, you're off on this one. But you have to stay within your system and style of who you are, whether it's the laissez-faire type like a Warren Buffett. Maybe it's a type, you're a big communicator. Whatever that might be, you have to stay in that lane. And I think it's the best lesson I've ever got, because I will tell you, as I've watched leaders, and I'm not criticizing them, but many leaders, when the business gets hard and the numbers are missing, they change who they are. Again, I want to be crystal clear. We absolutely need to reevaluate and change strategy. We have to seek to understand why are we performing and where we are, 100%. But you have to stay true to who you are and what your core values are as a leader. People change them. And when team members start to see them, and you know this is from your athletic background, even coaches you've had, you've got to be consistent.
That's great. When we go back to the book, talk to me about some of the feedback you've got, some of the impressions you made on people after they've read your book. What do you hear back?
All over the place. I get people quote the book to me on certain things. I'll get people comment about, it's amazing that your mother raised 3 kids on her own, all under the age of 8. We did help from my grandparents living in our 900 square foot top floor of the building that they lived in. I would say from a content standpoint, I would say a couple biggest things I've got was every chapter is short. That's what I get consistently. And they're like, was that on purpose? And I said, yes, because I wanted people to read it. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, depending on your speed level. If you're an average reader like me, it's about 2:15 or so, give or take. But it was to read it so they could get through it 150 pages pretty quickly. But so leaders like you and salespeople and manufacturing, computer people can go, hey, I need something on mental toughness today. I'm going to pick up the book again 6 months later, and it will take me 10 minutes to get through that chapter, and I'll get my ideas. Or you know what? I'm kind of struggling again with time management. I have steps and tools, 1 through 11, on things that they can do. One of them, I give this to everybody, is don't let email manage your life. I personally, if you're going to check it first thing, because I know some business you have to do that, check it and get the heck off it. Because email is playing defense. It's not offense most of the time. You are on defense. And as soon as you're on defense, you're now not reaching out to new customers, your current customers. You're now responding back. And people go, God, I had a busy day. And I go, what'd you do? And they played email for 4 hours. That, in the world of Pygon, what is not productive. You have to do it, but it is not productive. It is not putting it. So I would say those are some of the bigger things that came out. Specific, one of the chapters people comment is, you have a chapter that says, can a positive person go negative? Of course you can. It's healthy, you should, because shit happens. Bad things happen. And you absolutely, the key is though, you just can't allow it to affect your entire day. Something bad happens at 9, you still don't want it to be dragging you down at 4.
Great point. In your day job, Dave, you do a lot of speaking engagements.
Yes.
When a business owner pulls you in for a speaking engagement, what are they trying to accomplish generally?
Generally. I would say some of the biggest things that I do with leaders who pull me in with their teams, whether if it's a leadership, sometimes it's leadership mode, like how do we perform better? We have higher quotas this year. We have the same resources or less. We have to do more, and time is not on our side. What do we do? So they'll bring me in on how to be more efficient and more effective. So I have a model that's literally 11 steps. And trust me, Mike, I'm not arrogant. If I gave you 11 steps, you're like, oh my God, everything's brand new here. It's not. But usually what happens is, one, I always tell people, is there something on there that's new to you? They might say yes or no. Fair. Is there something on there that you use sometimes? Yes. Okay. Could you be using it more? Yes. Boom. There we go. So they bring me in to make their teams more efficient, more effective, and to help the bottom lines. The other big one is problem solving. I have a model for problem solving. What are steps? Because I'm guessing here you guys have problems, like we all do. So my model is to help them be more efficient and more effective. So when I ask them, would you like your people to be even better? Even better is the key word. That's my sales pitch. Even better at solving problems. They'll go, well, yeah, of course. And they say it to me like I'm a jackass. And I'll say, we can help you. Let's share with this. So when they leave me, it's not just me. And you and I have both been what I would call corporate entertainment over our years. We go in and this woman or man get on stage or get in a classroom and they do a wonderful job speaking. We love them. They're charismatic. We get a tool or two. And then 3 months later, everyone's forgot about it. Pygon 1 is absolutely against that. We have models, we have systems in place, we have follow-up structures, because guys like you are too darn busy to keep it going, generally speaking, 2-3 months down the line, because you're busy with your widget, whatever that widget is. Pygon 1 helps with that process. And that's really what our differentiator is we're going to keep it. And we have multiple ways, not just the models that we'll leave behind. The other big one is effective communication. And everyone says, oh, what does that mean? Right? Somewhat generic. I totally agree. But we get granular, like how do I sell you versus how do I sell your boss? Two different people.
Sure.
And we get in there granularly. And salespeople are like, oh, I've been calling on this customer. If you've been calling on a customer a potential customer for 5 years and you haven't moved the needle, most of the time, the average sales leader, sales rep blames the client and starts giving all the reasons why they're set in their ways. The way we do it at Pygon 1 is you can do that, but look in the mirror, you need to change even more than you already changed. And we help you do that.
Great point. Again, going back to your day job, you've got a unique front row seat to working with business leaders of all kinds.
Yes.
Love to hear something common, some common thread on characteristics that you see of successful people, leaders, and also the flip side. Things that are common that leaders don't possess, the common things that leaders need to work on. What would those be?
One off the bat, the leaders that have a growth mindset. I'll bring Carol Dweck out of it from Stanford, who's kind of the God woman on that she created. They have a growth mindset. They're learners. That's really what a growth mindset is. It's that person who wants to learn. And my leaders that I deal with, well, first of all, it makes sense because people who are bringing me in are what? They're learners. And they believe in it. They believe not just for themselves, but for their people. So that's why I'm surrounded by a lot of that. So that would make sense in me answering your question is, those are the executives I'm surrounding by. And for people I get who say, here's what I would say happens sometimes. I get people like say they're learners, and then I bring up topics and the answer is no, no, no. And they're reverting to a fixed mindset, which is non-learning. So one of the things that I talk about routinely is, I can only guarantee you one thing, is 225, that's right around the corner, and I can't believe we're not that far away from 225, is the world going to be different next year? Yes. Are you going to have more expectations set on you? Yes. Is it going to be potentially harder? Yes. Are your competitors coming after you even more next year? Yes. So if we don't learn and get better at something, how are we going to compete? And you're not getting more time in your day unless we find a way to be more efficient and effective. So it goes back to learners, my executives and leaders that are willing to do that, because then if they live that, breathe that, guess what happens to their employees? they're more apt to not be set in their ways and say, I'm struggling with this potential client. I can't get in the door. And they'll go, but you know what? I got to find a way. I've got to be a learner. So I would say that is a common denominator, that my successful organizations believe in that learning. And then the other ones, that, to no surprise, is they have an environment of people focus. They don't talk like this. Lance should do that work. I pay him. And I'm like, what do you mean you pay him? Well, I pay him really well. So Lance should do that. And I go, can I always go, don't get mad at me. Can I give you a perspective on that? Why are you paying Lance? And they're like, what do you mean? You're not paying him anything he's not earning. You want loyalty, you want a culture, he needs more than a check. Let me say that again, he needs more than a check. You're viewing as your benefit is the pay. What I'm trying to tell you, just being real with you here, is what the employers are thinking is, I'm working my tail off and you're paying me every dollar I earned. That doesn't give you any street credit with them whatsoever, because you're giving them what they earned.
Sure.
That's it. So my organizations that get that, and the most successful ones, they're looking for ways that they can develop their people. Buying them lunch, potbellies everyone's great, very thoughtful and kind, get it. But they want to be developed. They want to get skills. It's motivated, it's inspiring. They want career experiences to make them better for whatever might be down the line. Because the reality is, Michael, we don't know what the next job for some of these people is going to be in a year, 2, 3, or 4. But what we can offer our people is continuing to develop their skills and giving them experiences so when they go on that job interview, they can communicate, this is what I have done, other than, yeah, I've been selling this widget and I'm really good at it. No offense, the guy in California did the exact same thing. And now it's 50-50. The woman in Chicago is really good selling the widget. The man in California. Now I always tell my people, now it's 50-50. At Pygon 1, we don't like 50-50. That's bad odds to us.
Sure.
So my good organizations and leaders and people, they believe in that learner mindset, and they believe in developing their people more than just, hey, we're paying you well.
Dave, that's the end of my prepared Q&A. Thank you for all the insight. And I do want to give you the floor in case there's anything else you want to add that I didn't ask or.
No, Michael, it's an honor to be on your spotlight. That's all I wanted to tell you. You and I have become business friends and friends, and it was a joy to do this with you. And just really thank you. It's a blessing to be here and be able to talk to your community. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks again, Dave.